Could I ask the veterans in our audience to stand, please? Thank you. And of course, that is an expression of the appreciation and gratitude that we all have for your service and the service of all veterans for our country. So thank you very much. Could I have one of those agendas? I got to figure out what we're here for. Tulare County Voices at 2:10 is a monthly forum, second Tuesday of the month, here at 2:10, co-sponsored by the Visalia Times Delta, the Valley Voice, and First Presbyterian Church, which owns this building and this space that we are in. We are very grateful to be able to use this space each month to First Presbyterian Church and their congregation to allow us to use it. So I thank them once again. Our topic tonight, I was just explaining to a couple of our panelists behind me, it's groundwater and land subsidence. Or is it land subsidence and groundwater? It's really both, and they are inseparable, so we are going to discuss them together. We are putting together this forum a couple of months ago, and a couple of the members of our planning team would insist that this is really about subsidence and the threats it is to property, to infrastructure, and to the land around us. And I would say, no, it's about our groundwater, which is our most precious resource. Without that, we don't have a San Joaquin Valley. This place would be unlivable. But as we talked about it over several weeks, we realized it's both. And it has to be because it goes together. The more we pump groundwater and do not replace it in the earth, the more we are likely to suffer subsidence, which is the sinking of the ground beneath us. And that can, of course, have catastrophic effects on everything around us. This building that we are sitting in, our roads, bridges, canals, and we've got a couple of interesting examples of those that we'll talk about this evening. To tackle this subject, we have 5 real good experts. Starting at the far, let's see, it'd be my right? It's my right, it's your left. Aaron Fukuda is the general manager of the Tulare Irrigation District and of the Mid-Cahuilla Groundwater Sustainability Agency. What is a Groundwater Sustainability Agency, GSA, you might ask? He's going to tell you. And next to him, Johnny Amaral, who is the Chief Operating Officer of the Friant Water Users, is it Authority still?
Yes.
Friant Water Users Authority, and Johnny's been working in that field for a couple of years, okay? We'll keep it at that. In the middle of our panel, he ends up being in the middle of a lot of things, I find, is former city councilman, mayor, statesman, author, and, well, at one time a grower in the Valley, person you all know, Greg Collins. Next to him, going down to my left, your right, is a City of Visalia Public Works Director, Nick Barch, who is going to explain about what the City of Visalia, what their hand is in all this, what's their stake. And they do have them. This issue does not pertain just to large landowners to farmers, growers, large property owners, but to the municipal government, the city, and everyone who lives here. And finally, an old buddy of mine that I just realized tonight, we've talked before, but I didn't realize that Stuart Skoglund and I go back several decades, actually, the Valley Oaks Golf Course. But tonight, he doesn't have his golfing shoes on, and neither do I. He's representing California Water Service. Okay, to get us started, I've asked, actually Johnny Emerald, I think, volunteered Aaron Fakota to start us off by explaining what is the situation? What's our problem?
Well, good evening, everybody. I really appreciate you folks taking the time out of your evening to come and hear us talk about groundwater and subsidence, because my wife she said, go do whatever you want to do. I just don't want to hear about any more groundwater or subsidence. So you guys are going to get it all tonight. So largely why we're here is because of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. It was a piece of legislation that was passed in 2014 to require local entities under local control to achieve groundwater sustainability. That was its goal. But I personally believe tucked inside of that objective, the reason we're here was actually because of the subsidence or sinking of the ground that we were experiencing back in 2012 to about 2014. At that time, there was a new technology that was out that the Lawrence Livermore Labs was promoting called INSAR, which was satellite and aerial photography that could determine the sinking of the earth. And they showed these kind of heat maps that were showing the subsidence in the region. And actually, could you put those two slides I gave you up, maybe the first one first? I'll show you what kind of we were seeing at the time. And as you can see, this is regional subsidence from 1949 to 2005, several feet of subsidence. And as you can see in the lake bottom there is a focal point. So we weren't the only ones in the state experiencing subsidence, but we were one of the pronounced areas where we were seeing the ground sink there. If you go to the next slide, that's more of our current day subsidence. So you can see it's propagated out now. So what was once being experienced in the lake bottom has now stretched out and reached into our Kauai subbasin there, which is kind of in the middle there. And we are seeing significant amount of subsidence in our urban centers too. The city of Tulare has wells that have seen collapsed casings because we've seen subsidence in the tune of 3 feet in the city of Tulare. So while many of the rooms I'm in right now around the state talk about the agricultural impacts, I think I'm one that manages 2 cities and an irrigation district's groundwater supplies, recognize that the system operates as one big bathtub. And so managing one little area isn't going to solve the problem. We have to manage it globally across the subbasin. And it is tied to groundwater levels, and the lowering of the groundwater levels in the lower aquifers or where there are clays takes the water out of the clay. It's not the sandy soils that are collapsing, it's the clay soils. And once you evacuate the water out of that soil structure, the layer down there shrinks. It smashes like a sponge, so therefore the ground surface deflects down. Now,
Brian, excuse me, Aaron. Brian, could you show that photo we had up there first? With the lady with there you go.
Yeah, you can see
how. There's the old school method of measuring ground subsidence.
Yeah, it's when you see images, and I'm learning in the Sigma world, images paint pictures better than data sometimes.
And there's a bunch of these kinds of photos that have become sort of the representation of the problem.
Yeah, and Sigma really says, so Sigma's interesting too, because the metrics aren't you shall eliminate it, you shall minimize or eliminate subsidence. So there is our Earth's crust, things around the geography are in continual motion and change. So the legislature and the scientists at the time recognized that there are areas where you don't necessarily see the impact. You wouldn't know that there's an impact till you saw this image, right? In certain areas, you would be driving around and you wouldn't know any difference. We canvassed our entire region talking with the county and others. Are there any road impacts, bridge impacts? No, you don't have any in your GSA, which includes Tulare Irrigation District, City of Visalia, City of Tulare. When we canvassed them, upon further impacts, what we realized, it's not the overall sinking many times that causes the impact. It's a differential settlement where you get a dip. And that's where Sigma ties the impact to critical infrastructure where you're going to have an impact. And I think next what I want to pass it to is Johnny Amaral to speak about that critical infrastructure, because when you lose things like capacity in canals, things like that, all of a sudden now you do have an impact. But theoretically, in our region, we were looking for the impacts, and if the earth is sinking at an even rate, you wouldn't know the difference. There really wasn't a lot of impacts. Now, when you get to the lake bottom, you saw some impacts in the last flooding season, but generally up in our area, it was tilting in an even fashion. We didn't have the differential settlement. If you see those images that I had up with the color is a gradation, and as long as you're sloping away, you're going to be okay. Now, if you get a differential dip, you're going to have problems, and maybe Johnny here can highlight those impacts.
Before we go, the colors there.
Yeah.
The redder it is,
red is
deeper
bad.
the
We did get that right.
red's bad.
Red is bad. We got that
All
right.
right.
And the green is generally basically no subsidence.
No subsidence at all.
And as a reference, our critical infrastructure that runs through our areas, checking with our local entities and coordinating closely with Friant Water Authority, we did not have any critical infrastructure with subsidence on it. Now, that doesn't mean to say we're not concerned with it. So if you read our groundwater sustainability plan, which we put together to manage groundwater sustainability in relation to subsidence, we are closely watching things like the Friant-Kern Canal, TID's main canal. Those items, any type of minor subsidence, we're going to step in immediately and look at the impacts, causes, and then set a plan to reduce or eliminate that subsidence.
Who wants to talk about the groundwater sustainability agencies?
Oh, I
first?
guess I should have probably so when the law was passed in 2014, the legislation required to maintain local control to establish groundwater sustainability agencies. These are agencies that are propped up to manage the groundwater. And so we had to form those agencies by 2017 and then establish a groundwater sustainability plan by 2020. We submitted that plan in 2020. It was evaluated by the Department of Water Resources, and it was deemed insufficient. And we were given a small period of time to fix that incomplete, insufficient plan. Unfortunately, when we resubmitted it, it still was not suitable. And then we were turned over to the State Water Resources Control Board for what they call intervention. And the State Water Resources Control Board has two options. They can allow us to revise our plan and reevaluate it and send us back to DWR, or they can put us in probation and set an interim plan. And that's where the state steps in with their own plan called an interim plan. And that basically had one option in it, and that's they're going to cut your groundwater pumping back to what they call the sustainable yield, which should not see any impacts whatsoever. And in many places, if you go to the sustainable yield, you'll be pumping somewhere between 4 to 9 inches of water across your land. In agricultural terms, we use approximately, in groundwater, in my GSA, we use about 1.5 acre feet per acre. Cities use about a little less than that. They use about 1.25 to 1.3 acre feet per acre. So it was going to be a very difficult proposition to get state control over the top of us. Oh, and you pay for that pumping too. And those fees go to Sacramento, and they don't stay local. So in our region, in the Cuya Subbasin, where you're sitting today, we revised our plan in 2024. the 3 groundwater sustainability agencies in the Cahuilla Subbasin. We resubmitted that plan to the state board. They subsequently canceled the hearing for probation, and on December 2nd, we get the ultimate Christmas gift, we hope, with a bow on it, and we are being sent back to the Department of Water Resources. And from there, we just implement our plan, and our goal is to achieve groundwater sustainability by 2040. But if you look at the actions of our 3 GSAs in the Cahuilla Subbasin, we're actually trying to target sustainability on an earlier time period, because you can't wait till the last minute to achieve sustainability, because if you're not there and you're trying to do it at the last minute, the actions you have are pretty difficult to achieve. So if we can get there sooner, it's a little bit easier path.
I'm going to give you a little knot I would like to untie for me. Could you explain a little bit about the term would be the balkanization of all of the groundwater sustainability agencies in the greater Cahuilla Subbasin? I mean, there's more than 3.
Yeah, I think that's, you mean, in the Cahuilla Subbasin, we have 3 groundwater sustainability agencies, and they have been here since day one, so we have not broken apart. I think what Johnny is going to cover is in the Tulare Subbasin, which is south of us, there is some fracturing occurring, and they're creating new GSAs, so there's going to be way more. In the Cahuilla Subbasin, the 3 GSAs have understood that sustainability is a finish line of which all of us have to get to together. You can't finish this race with one person way behind you. We've stuck together through it, actually gotten more collaboration now than ever before, because we see success in collaboration. So there are 3 GSAs in the Cahuilla Subbasin: the Greater Cahuilla GSA, the East Cahuilla GSA, and the Mid Cahuilla GSA, which I manage.
Good, thank you.
Question in the back, Paul.
Could you point out Visalia on that map?
Yeah, so Visalia is going to be kind of right. Yeah, I apologize. It's going to kind of be right under the San Joaquin, right where San Joaquin's at.
Yeah, we're not going to be able to read anything on there. How about in relation to the blue lines, Aaron?
You're going to be probably right about there. Okay, Greg, you're taller.
Yeah, it just.
You're taller. Yeah, so you're probably right about
I had a laser pointer once, but I don't now.
Looks like a lot of red dots in your area, Aaron.
Yeah.
A lot of work to do. You want me to start now?
Go ahead.
Can you get my presentation up, the next one up, please? And while he's
The PowerPoint, Brian?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah. Just out of curiosity, raise your hand if you farm anywhere between Porterville and Ducor. Okay, good. I didn't bring my flak jacket today, so I'm good.
But they're all watching at home.
Yeah, I know. Everybody's recording too. Thank you for the invitation, Paul and Lou. Thank you for thinking of us on this. As Aaron said, a lot of us have our hands full on what's going on with Sigma and how we're going to deal with the act. And in my case, for who I work for at the Friant Water Authority, our primary responsibility is to operate and maintain the Friant-Kern Canal, which is owned by the United States, built about 80 years ago, and runs, next slide please, and runs, you can see on this map, it's kind of hard to see from here, but what you're seeing there is, in colors there, the greens and the yellows, those are just marking irrigation districts who have contracts with the United States to receive water from Friant Dam. It's conveyed down the Friant-Kern Canal, 152 miles from Friant Dam, down the east side of the valley to its terminus at the Kern River. And so one of Aaron's district is represented there. I can't see that far, but there's about 32 districts who take water off the Friant-Kern. These are districts like Tulare ID, Cahuilla Delta Water Conservation District, the City of Fresno, City of Orange Cove, City of Lindsay, Arvin Edison Water Storage District, so it's mostly agricultural, but a lot of municipal and industrial users as well, cities. Next slide, please. So this is how I like to describe Sigma right now. It depends on kind of where you're situated in the state to determine where you are in the 5 stages of grief, but it's somewhere in between, especially here in the Central Valley, between bargaining and acceptance. The denial was right at the very beginning in 2014. In fact, leading up to the passage of the act, there was many people doubted that would actually get passed. I don't know that anybody's ever going to accept it, but we're dealing with it. Obviously, anger followed after denial. Some people are still very angry about this because of the impacts the implementation of the act is going to have on farming operations and infrastructure. So I don't mean to make fun of this. This is not a joking matter, but the passage it's only been a decade. It passed in 2014. The passage of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act has elicited every emotion you can think of because it is changing necessarily behavior. The Bryant-Kern Canal was built, as I said, 80 years ago. One of the principal reasons was because of severe overdraft that was taking place in the areas I'm going to talk about next. And the desire by the United States to get some surface water to those areas because it is one of the best growing regions in the world. And so many of the cities and communities that we live in and that are neighbors exist because of the existence of the Bryant-Kern Canal. It provided a water supply, a lifeline. And so our job is to protect it now, and it's not an easy task. Next slide. This is the gray area on that bar, the ETGSA area. Aaron talked about the Cahuilla Subbasin. The ETGSA area is the Eastern Tulare Groundwater Sustainability Agency, which is within the Tulare Subbasin, which is just south of here. And what you're seeing in that map, the blue line there, the Bryant-Kern Canal is as I mentioned, a 152-mile canal that is 100% gravity-fed canal. There's no pumping that takes place. There's a series of check structures that help us regulate the flow from the dam, but it drops about 6 inches per mile for 152 miles, and so it's all fed by gravity. And what happens when you see the blue line is the original elevation of the canal when it was built. And so if that would have maintained in that condition, everything would be fine. We probably wouldn't be having a forum about this topic, frankly. But what you're seeing
you wouldn't be here anyway if we were having a forum about it.
Oh, I'd take the invitation, but yeah. But what you're seeing there on the lines below that, those are represented by recent data, and I have even more recent data in the next slide. But what that is the severity of the problem we're dealing with the Bryant-Kern Canal in that reach, which starts around the city of Porterville and runs about 30 miles south of there. When a gravity-fed facility experiences that type of condition, it's virtually impossible to move water through that reach. In fact, up until we started a project to correct the capacity just a few years ago, we had lost over 60% of the carrying capacity through the canal in that reach. So every contractor, every district, every community, every city that relies on the Bryant-Kern Canal for their water supplies, downstream of that belly was feeling impacts. They were being shorted their water supply. So we had to act fast, and I'll show some slides later, but that's the severity of the problem. The deepest point in terms of subsidence at that time was 14 feet. So the canal had sunk 14 feet just in that area alone. Yeah. Next slide. This is the more recent data, and I apologize, I can't see the dates here, but these lines basically show the same trend as the prior slide, but it's new data every year from 2020 till today. And you can see, unfortunately, this is not a problem that's fixing itself, hence the existence of the groundwater sustainability plans and SGMA. Next slide. This is a slide that depicts some of the actions that we're contemplating, trying to get the state of California and the GSAs in that region to implement, which is a protective zone around that reach of the canal that would severely limit, or in some cases prohibit pumping, because there's a direct correlation from especially deep aquifer pumping to the impacts on the Frank Kern Canal. Again, it's not a problem that Sigma has solved yet. It's still a problem we're experiencing, and even if groundwater overdraft was stopped today, there would still be what they call residual subsidence that would still occur on the facility. So it's a big problem we're still trying to deal with. Next slide. I don't like to just talk about problems, so I'll get to some solutions, some proposed solutions later in a minute here. But this chart is, if you're in the water industry or agriculture industry, this is maddening, because ultimately, whether or not we get a water supply here in the valley is more dependent on regulation and less on rainfall. I mean, rainfall, of course, we need rainfall and snowpack, but the overregulation of the Central Valley Project and the State Water Project over the course of the last 40 years has created this circumstance where we went from, in the 70s, 100% reliability of water exports through the Delta to right around 40%. And you can't make, with population growing and the economy growing and agriculture growing, that's hard to make the math work when you see these bars. Each of these bars represents a law, a regulation, some litigation, or even a deal that was made that resulted in less water supply being exported from the Delta. And all of the water users in California are connected, believe it or not, through the Delta. It's important to remember that 80% of the snowpack and rainfall that falls in California falls north of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, but 80% of the demand for that water is south of it. So what you do with the water when it makes it into the Delta, whether you're going to export it or have it flow out to the ocean, that determines whether or not we have a water supply. It really does. And it certainly contributes to the downward trend, which has to be corrected. Next, go ahead.
It should be noted, too, that the regulatory controls are trying to regulate for something. Well, the regulatory control isn't achieving success either. So we're not seeing success on the regulatory side, and we're losing the surface water supply. And the common answer is we'll just regulate more water supply out of it because it'll get better, and it's not. So we have to make critical decisions right now. Is this strategy working? To me, it's not.
We'll get to some solutions here pretty soon here, but thank you, Aaron, appreciate it. Next slide. All right, so solutions.
Just let me pause.
Yes, sir.
I want to make sure everybody understands the connection between surface water and groundwater, because it's all one water.
Yeah, like
eventually,
I tell people we're not pumping groundwater. We're pumping surface water that we've parked in the groundwater system, and we utilize at a later date. So everything that happens in the Kauai subbasin is sourced from a surface water molecule that is then parked in the groundwater system.
So what can be done to reverse this trend? There are some things, some opportunities now, believe it or not. The biological opinions is probably a term you may or may not have heard of, but these are basically the rules and regulations that determine how water moves in California through the Delta. We have to squeeze every opportunity out of the existing law to move as much water as possible when it's available, to get it into the ground or get it into storage so that it can be used by cities and farms. There was some talk, it's not so much talk about it now, about implementing the voluntary agreements, doing some early implementation, some pulse flows, some other experimental ideas on the voluntary agreements. That can't, if we're going to reach sustainability, that can't happen. Fall X2, it's a fancy word, sounds like a sci-fi movie for basically a line in the Delta that it's basically a salinity line, how they control where the salinity line, where ocean water meets fresh water, where they're going to regulate it to. We need to have big reforms on Fall X2 or not implemented at all, because the kicker on all this is many of these regulations are put in place to save, to protect or save the Delta smelt. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Delta smelt. Okay, that's good. And after about a 20-year experiment to save the Delta smelt, the species is, for all intents and purposes, extinct. Old and Middle River, this is another fancy word or fancy phrase for how when the two big water projects in the Delta, the United States has one and the state of California has one. They're big pumping plants in the Delta. When those plants are pumping water, it actually moves the San Joaquin River backwards, reverse flow. It pulls the river backwards. And so, but no one really denies that that has the potential to produce impacts to species and habitat. But there's a better way to manage Old and Middle River reverse flow, and that needs to happen too. Governance is a maddening one because you would hope that the regulators and the people in charge of how much water is going to move through the Delta would be more nimble and be more willing and able to react to real-time data. It is like the sloth in that cartoon movie, just like working at the DMV. It feels like that. So it's there needs to be more. If there really truly is an intention to ensure that there's more reliability in operations in the Delta, the governance structure needs to be way more nimble, and then be able to adapt to changing conditions in the Delta when they happen. Next slide. We get there by establishing and making sure we all exercise our First Amendment right to petition our government to ensure that they let us know what their intentions are for us. How much water do they think we should have? Because the current regulation, the way it's operated, it's not enough. And it's hasn't been enough for a long time, and it's been getting worse. There are some structural and some work that can be done to solidify some levees and other facilities in the Delta that should be looked at. D-1641 is a decision by the State Water Resources Control Board from many years ago, a water quality control plan that says on these dates between April 15th and May 15th, you will shut down pumping in the Delta, irrespective of the conditions, irrespective if there's fish nearby, irrespective of anything else. It's just when this date hits on the calendar, that's when the pumping is going to shut down. That is insanity, frankly. It's not as if the fish are just waiting, watching their iPhone, their calendar, like, hey, once it gets to April 15th, we're clear. Let's go hang out. No, it doesn't work like that. There needs to be. We need to be way more nimble and be thinking about these regulations that are put in place and whether or not they're actually serving their purpose. Shasta Reservoir up in Redding is the workhorse of the Central Valley Project, 4 million acre feet reservoir. It's a monster. It's in recent years, it's basically been turned into a large reservoir for regulating cold water for salmon. Not real conducive for water users, which is all of us, all of you. Again, the pinch of regulation has made its way to Shasta. Raising Shasta Dam, that's probably not something I'll see in my lifetime. It's a good project, should be done. It would create another 600,000 acre feet of available storage in Shasta. Very expensive project, unclear where the money would come from or who would pay for it or pay it back. But if the state's going to continue to grow and the economy is going to continue to thrive and ag's going to stay viable, more water supply would be necessary. Of course, restoring conveyance capacities. We talked about the Frank Kern Canal, where we had lost 60% of our capacity, ability to move water, and there are other canals, not just the Frank Kern Canal, the Delta Mendota Canal, the California Aqueduct. These are all facilities that are impacted by subsidence, same cause, different area. And in order to try to become whole as much as possible, we need to continue to restore conveyance capacities at these critical facilities, and continue to do work to improve and provide the conditions for species to thrive. And that includes hatchery species, or hatchery fish. Next slide. I'm just going to burn through these really quick. I just wanted to give, I mentioned a bit ago that just about 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, we finished the capacity correction project at the Frank Kern Canal. This is that area I was talking about. between Porterville and Ducor. We had to, in essence, we had lost so much capacity in the old canal, which you see on the left of the screen. We had to build a new canal just adjacent to it to get back to original capacity. So what you see on the left is the old canal right next to when they were digging out the prism for the new canal. So there's just a series of slides here. Next one. Another good picture, old canal on the left, new canal coming around on the right. Next slide. This is the Deer Creek check. So we had to build, in the first 10 miles of the canal we had to rebuild the Deer Creek check structure, which is one of the facilities we use to regulate flow and water levels in the canal. Big endeavor, the whole project was, but replacing a check going under a river or creek is a big endeavor. Next slide. It wasn't without its complications. 2023 came around and we had a big rain year and it flooded out our project and shut us down for about 7 months. Could not stop the water from inundating the project site because Deer Creek is a completely wild creek and the water kept coming. It was historic 100-year flood conditions and we could not keep the water off the project site. So we were delayed a little bit. You can see about 2/3 of the way down the creek flowing, and of course the old canal and the new canal prism completely underwater. That area on the right that's above the trees that are underwater, you can't see it in this picture, but that was where the contractor who was building the canal staged all of their water trucks and vehicles and equipment. They were underwater in that picture. They didn't react quick enough to get the equipment out of there, so that was a good time. Next slide.
Can I ask for clarification on the
Yes.
reason you need a second canal there? Is it because the slope due to subsidence has degraded, or is it due to silting or something else?
It was the prior. The condition of the old canal had sunk so much that we couldn't restore the capacity just by raising the liners, making it taller. We had to build an entirely new facility to get back to historic capacity. That's how much the canal had fallen. I wish I would have brought another picture. There's a picture that I have that's at ground level that shows the difference between the elevation of the old canal and the new canal today, and it's like this, you know, and that's just to account for the 14 feet of subsidence that has taken place.
And so that affected the slope, is
Right.
that it?
Yeah, the ability to convey water. That's right. Yes, sir.
How does that account for future, it's not gonna stop subsidence.
Right. We ended up overbuilding the new canal by about 5 feet in preparation for or anticipation of future subsidence. We don't like that additional subsidence is happening, and it's happening at too rapid of a pace. But we did over-engineer and overbuild the project. Next slide. These are just the way they actually laid the liner. The paver is what they call it, and it's a machine. They did one half down about 5 miles, flipped the equipment on the other side, and came back the other way. Next slide. There's just a few more here. That's the tie-in, the connection from the new canal to the old canal, and we have one on the north end and one on the south end. Next slide. Some more canal lining.
Is the canal lining concrete?
Yes.
Doesn't that contribute to subsidence with all that weight?
No. The way it's engineered and built, the weight of the concrete does not contribute to subsidence. No. Next slide. And this is at the northern end of the tie, and you can see the old canal on the left, the new canal on the right, and that was day 2 after we started running water from the old canal into the new canal. Next slide. Oh yeah, thank you. So that project was about $336 million. And mind you, that was to restore capacity that had been lost, not to gain capacity, not to increase capacity. That was just to restore capacity so that the contractors who take water off the Frank-Kerr Canal could be made whole. This is not something you'll hear many people say, But this project was the product of cooperation between the Trump administration and the Newsom administration. So it can happen. It's rare, but cooperation between the Trump administration and the Newsom administration is possible. And it's on, it's on YouTube now. Yeah. So it's yeah. So we're very fortunate. People ask all the time how we were able to get this project up and running and done so quickly. And the common denominator, the most common reaction or response I give is start with a project that has no controversy. And ours had zero controversy.
Zero controversy. Your slide on the stages of grief.
That's the one you want to talk about?
Yes, that is the one I want to talk about. Thank you. I think that it's important for this discussion to convey why this is happening with people. Why are people in denial? Why are they so angry, trying to bargain, and depressed about this situation?
The main reason is because behavior, the behavior or the expectation for the last 100 years is changing. And I think we forget sometimes we use terms like sustainable yield and native yield and transitional pumping and things like that. But what that really means is what is sustainable in order to stop subsidence in the Central Valley, or in my case for Friant in the Tule subbasin, is about an acre-foot per acre. That's about what is sustainable that we think will help us control subsidence or stop subsidence. There isn't a crop that's grown in the valley that takes less than 2.5 or 3 acre-feet per acre to grow. So if you're farming in an area that is not served by an irrigation district, what's known in the Sigma world as whitelands, you're upside down. Your water math doesn't add up. You have, especially if you have, let's just using easy math here, if you have 100 acres, you have enough water, and you have 100 acres in production, let's say of pistachios, you have enough water of sustainable pumping to farm about 30 of it. So unless you find an alternative source, additional surface supplies, that's just not an
Sustainable.
equation that can continue. It's pretty. So that when people, again, the denial at first in 2014 was there was many. To this day, I still get people asking very basic questions. Farmers still asking very basic questions about Sigma, and what's going to happen and how it's going to happen, and so. The bargaining is about survival. How can I find water? Who can I make a deal with on water? Is there water available? Obviously, depression. I mean, again, this is not intended to be a joke, but all these emotions are going on right now, without question.
I just want to add to that because I deal with it on a daily basis. I mean, I'm in as close as contact as I can with our growers, and if I brought some charts, I would have showed you that we had largely in this region had solved many of these issues back in the 80s, but it was with surface water. And as Johnny has pointed out to you, that surface water has depleted, and it's not necessarily just all regulated. There's a lot of other things happening at the same time. Our consumption did go up, though, during the 80s and 90s. But overall, the struggle that our folks have is there were commitments made at the state, federal level, and those haven't been lived up to. If you think climate change is rough, talk about regulatory change, right? You add climate change on top of regulatory change, farmers don't have a fighting chance. And what I'm sharing with Sacramento right now is if Sacramento doesn't start evaluating some of these decision-making processes that they go under because they use terms like sustainability and you just need to get there, what we're seeing locally is a small family farmer just is not a realistic option for agriculture in the state of California. And we're losing them at an alarming rate and somebody asked me once just recently, well, Aaron, I mean, this was just gonna happen, so, okay, if you don't like losing a family farmer, is there an acceptable number? And I said, yeah, 1. And the reason for that is if you look at from a local perspective, The folks that you engage with and your community depends on is that local farm, that small family farmer. If there becomes a corporate footprint, which we have a lot of corporate going on, you have to understand they have a farm management team, an attorney team, a land acquisition team, and the profit margins, if you trace back where these corporate entities are from, are investment portfolios. So it's kind of like, you know, my wife and I talk about it all the time. We made a conscientious decision to go to Home Depot because we don't have Eisman's anymore in Hanford. And we know that when we buy something at Home Depot, it goes to the profit margin goes to the East Coast. We're making that clear decision right now in the state of California in regards to farming, and we better start making different decisions if we want to change. That is up for the public's opinion, not just mine. So that's why you ask somebody, like, where are you at in this? And I literally had a grower call me and say, I'm out, Aaron. I'm done. If you've ever had a grown man cry on the phone with you and got me teary-eyed, it's a serious deal. And we're both, and please just stay in this for a couple more years, right? Just stay with it. I'll get you there. We'll put tools in your toolbox. There's nothing better than giving a farmer a screwdriver and a piece of duct tape, and they'll make magic out of it. He now is increasing his ability to farm. He's buying ground right now. He's figured out the water supply footprint. You know, he's figuring it out. He's farming today as we speak, and he's using the tools we gave him. So, but I've never used it.
What are
That's
the
awesome.
tools? What are the tools? It's not water. What are the tools?
They have to manage scarcity, so we give them, we're monetizing groundwater now. So they can use it to fill the holes where ag can't bring them profits. So he's putting water in the ground for the benefit of his neighbors and trying to help them bring more water supply in, and he takes a little bit of revenue off that in a water market.
Okay, so he's farming something different than a crop you take out of the ground necessarily. What questions do we have back there?
There's no, oh, here's a question.
Got to be some questions back there.
I am left without an appreciation for how pumping in the Delta affects the water that comes out of Millerton Lake. I don't understand that. Can you explain that to me?
Yes, I'll try not to bore you with this one. But years ago, in the late 1800s, when the Central Valley, mostly the west side Los Banos area, was starting to get farmed and settled, you've heard of the Miller and Lux family. They started farming there, and they had historic rights on the San Joaquin River, going back to the late 1800s. In the mid-1900s, or early to mid-1900s, the United States decided to build a dam on the San Joaquin River. And that, in essence, dried up the river. It didn't in essence, it dried up the river for decades. In order to be able to do that, they had to enter into an agreement with those historic water users off the San Joaquin River, who are now called the exchange contractors. They, in essence, exchanged their water supply from the San Joaquin River for Delta water supplies. We, the Friant Division, were the beneficiary of the water then that was impounded behind Friant Dam, moved through the Friant-Kern Canal. And we, the contractors in the Friant Division, are entitled to take our full contract amounts so long as the needs and demands of the exchange contractors are met from Delta supplies. So we are forever tethered to reliable operations in the Delta, mainly to ensure that the exchange contractors receive their supply, because we have a very connected relationship with the exchange contractors. There have been times in the last decade when their water supply has not been met through the Delta, and that's turned into what we call a call on Friant water. It hasn't happened in fact, for almost the entirety of the existence of the exchange contract, it never happened up until 2015. Then it all went to them that year. And the Friant Division contractors, which includes districts here, Cuya Delta and Tulare, got zero allocation that year. So it is in this region, the east side of the San Joaquin Valley, it's hard to contextualize sometimes, but it's very much in our interest to ensure reliable, predictable operations of the Delta so that the exchange contractors get their water, which entitles us or enables us to get the water from Millerton. Even aside from that, if you think about it, molecules of water that fall in Shasta, up in Redding, make it all the way down to Los Angeles through the Delta. So all this entire, I call it the plumbing system in California, because it really is, it's all connected. And as the regulations continue to mount on operations in the Delta, it puts that squeeze onto, well, every water user, but I'm just more keenly focused on how it affects the Friant division, Friant Water Authority. So it is a genius of engineering. But it is pretty simple. Take water from where it falls and pump it to where the demand is. We happen to be a part of that. Yes, sir.
And-
I understand that the size, based on what you just said, both of you, is an agricultural problem. Okay, it's a water problem, it's an agricultural problem. But you know, the taxpayer is also subsidizing the farming operation here. And the infrastructure that's going to be damaged, just based on what I saw from 2015 to now, I mean, it's pretty drastic groundwater removal, which is going to impact the infrastructure if it hasn't already. And I'm thinking of bridges, that kind of stuff that are on the roads, period. And the taxpayer is basically subsidizing then this whole project.
Well,
I'd like to hear anybody comment on that.
on the Friant-Kern Canal, I'll just speak about the Friant-Kern Canal. The contractors who have contracts to receive water off the canal paid for that facility. They paid their capital obligation to pay for that facility for its original construction. We're also paying to fix it, and we're fixing a problem that was not caused by those farmers who farm in water districts. It's caused by farmers who farm outside of water districts in what's called whitelands. And so it's like a double whammy for the Friant division.
In the Mid-Cahuilla, we look at it a little bit differently, is that we don't want the general taxpayers to pay for the damages that are accrued to subsidence. So generally speaking, like Johnny had indicated, our plan speaks to if you create the damage, you're going to pay to fix that damage. And so in coordinating with our local county and cities, we aren't seeing the impacts to roads and bridges. I hate to say it, I mean, in reality, we've driven Tulare County roads. Subsidence is not our concern right now. It's, will I lose my axle in the pothole? That's not subsidence. So, but if we have a canal that dips, or we have to go in there and fix it, so I'm going to put my TID hat on, my irrigation district hat. If the growers cause that impact, then we're going to go in and fix that impact with our own grower dollars. Interestingly, just so you're aware, I'm in many a room where we talk about, but the cities have their own. They are experiencing subsidence caused by cones of depressions. If you're within a city footprint, your well cannot stop. Even under SGMA, it's very unrealistic that you're going to have the ability to say, I got to turn off a well. That's, as a homeowner, you need that for health and safety. It's an important feature. The city of Tulare is currently experiencing subsidence in their wells. And again, as you use that water for M&I uses in the city, they're taking care of those issues on their own wells. So the way we look at it, if there's a subsidence impact, if there's a clear connection with the user and the impact, that user shall pay that impact. We don't see the taxpayers in that globally. Visalia is going to pay for Tulare impacts, and Tulare no. In your region, you're going to see it, and you're going to pay for it.
Sir, go ahead. Before you ask your question, I'd like to remind everybody that this program is being streamed and it's being recorded and will be available on the First Presbyterian Church YouTube channel. Therefore, You are required to use the microphone. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to hear you on that program, okay? So don't speak unless you've got a microphone in front of you. Thank you.
Can we hear from the other speakers?
I thought you had a question back there. No? You want to
Being
wait?
televised, I withdraw my.
You want to wait? You okay? Nick, what about subsidence in the city of Visalia and the cone of depression?
Well, I can speak to that. So, from a city
I hope so.
perspective, we definitely have a concern and are interested in ensuring that we are being responsible in the long-term outlook of our water use. One maybe statistic that many folks aren't aware of is that over 50%, probably over 60% of our water use within the city is actually outdoor water use. We can see that, and I'm sure Stuart can probably elaborate on that a little bit more since Cal Water is our water purveyor. But the city does take a big effort in making sure that we are using our water efficiently. It's not a job that we enjoy doing as far as enforcement, but it's something that we feel is important to make sure that we're looking out for the longevity of our water supply. A couple other things that the city has been proactive. We've had a conservation ordinance since the 80s. So this is something that's not new to the city, but it's something that continues to evolve as we start to see impacts statewide and citywide, and also see the regulations that the state is putting on us. The city has taken on a lot of new projects to put in recharge basins. As many of you may have seen, we've constructed a recharge basin out at our Eastside Regional Park. It's got a fabulous walking path around it. If you haven't had an opportunity to go out there, I encourage you to do so. You'll probably see a lot of other folks enjoying that as well. We've got several other basins that we are going to be constructing over time to increase our ability to recharge water, to replenish the water table. A couple other projects that we have completed recently also is our Packwood Creek check structure. This was a project that we've partnered with Tulare Irrigation District on to basically utilize some of our canals and creeks that run through the city as a recharge basin. We were able to construct check structures that will hold that water in place and allow it to recharge into the ground. We have another project that we're working on with through a grant in Cameron Creek. So that's another one that will basically be able to be utilized in the same fashion.
What's the subsidence rate in the city of Visalia, Nick?
So, as Aaron kind of mentioned, we're not seeing major effects of subsidence within the city. We recently had several on another project reshoot some benchmarks, and we've only seen 6 to 8 inches in some cases of subsidence in the last 10 to 20 years. So it's not saying that we're not experiencing it, but it's not something that we're seeing as a substantial impact to date. However, it doesn't mean that it won't come. The other piece of that, I think, is where there may be other cities in the state or similar to the Frank Kern Canal where you're seeing major impacts of subsidence to where the capacity of a pipeline or a canal is no longer meeting what it was designed to do. We don't have sewer lines that are flowing backwards to date, thankfully. We're not seeing our pipes break in that fashion either, so we're not seeing major offsets in those lines, but it doesn't mean that can't come. So it's something that we're definitely aware of and concerned about, that we're trying to make sure that we're achieving sustainability as much as possible, and although we can't reverse subsidence, we're doing everything we can to minimize it and prevent it in the future.
6 to 8 inches over 20 years is almost not going to be noticed, barely detected. You're talking about three quarters of an inch in a year. Most people aren't going to notice that. They're not going to notice their house sinking 3/4 of an inch in a year. But is there anything you're doing to prepare for that, to reinforce infrastructure, for instance, or to get prepared if the subsidence does become an area where sidewalks start cracking or people's foundations are starting to need to be reinforced?
That's something that is an interesting question. I would say that as it relates to a lot of our infrastructure that the city manages, as far as stormwater and sewer, for example, a lot of the bigger impacts that we see to infrastructure is piping that goes maybe perhaps vertically. Aaron mentioned one of our neighboring cities has had issues with some of their well casings that go down 600 to 800 feet collapsing. And a lot of that is because of that differential in the vertical. It doesn't mean that we can't see that in the horizontal like we do with our sewer pipes, but really the sewer and storm drain only range in the matter of 20 to 30 feet deep at the deepest. So we're not seeing that major effect across 600 feet, for example. So we're continuing to look at alternative materials as necessary. Obviously the materials that are used today, such as PVC, is definitely different than what you might have seen, 50 to 60 years ago. That may have been ductile iron or even concrete pipe. So the concrete pipe that we are installing is reinforced. It doesn't mean that it's not going to be susceptible to the impacts in the future, but I would say that the materials we're using today are definitely much better than they used to be.
So you're looking ahead for that kind of thing to happen anyway.
Let me just add to that, because Nick's my boss, by the way, if you guys don't know that. For the Mid-Cahuilla Groundwater Sustainability Agency, the city of Visalia is a third partner in that, and we've alluded to it, but the subsidence is connected with groundwater levels, and so the higher the level you can keep in your groundwater system, the longer you'll be able to kind of hold off on potential impacts from subsidence. And so the city of Visalia has directed the GSA and our staff and our consultants to venture on what we call a strategic plan that focuses only on these undesirable results related to sigma, so subsidence and groundwater levels, with a specific focus on, again, the GSA trying to get to sustainability as fast as we can, and that should avoid any of these subsidence-related impacts so we can maintain that inches, if not reduce that in the future. So again, leadership is important, and I think you've got it in Visalia, and they're pointing us in the direction that leads to sustainability.
I was just wondering, how deep is the groundwater in Visalia, and compare it to 2000?
Yeah, so I can answer that. I just want to say thank you to Paul for inviting me to be a part of this tonight. So just to let you know, groundwater levels, currently this year, our average groundwater level, static water level, is 143 feet. Back in 1990, it was 70, 71. So it's definitely gone down. Now, of course, over the years, we have had spikes that have gone in the opposite direction, but overall, it's gone down to, currently 143 feet.
Is there any way we're ever going to be able to get it back to 71?
I think that's what we're working on, right?
Stay tuned.
So question on your groundwater levels, what is your population change from 90 to where you are today? Because that's really, to me, is the determining factor that's going to contribute to how much you've decreased that level.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how much the population has increased since, and we all know that Visalia has grown quite a bit in recent years. But I will say, and this makes me feel a little bit better, I don't know about the rest of you, but I would say per capita, we are using less water now than we were years. We were using so much more water back in the 90s compared to now, even though, yes, the groundwater level is deeper, but we are using less water. And I think what attributes to that is, we were required by 2025 to have water meters installed at every residence. So we started that back in the late 2000s. We got that done, and since then, people are using less water. So, and of course, with our conservation and rebates that we offer, we're really, constantly pushing that, just offering different things for folks. I think most of you might know this, but we do have a 4-tiered system for our rates. I think we added that 4th tier recently, and so that just means that you're going to pay more for more water that you use, and that has actually caused some people to use less water. It doesn't, You know, a lot of people aren't as concerned about it as some of us, but we are seeing that it's making a positive impact. Also, I just looked at my own bill today before coming here. I wanted to look at it, and you know, I do only water on the watering days, just to let you know.
We send somebody out to check that.
Yeah. But irrigation water, when we irrigate, especially if we have grass, and a lot of it, we use a lot more water. And my bill increases 45% in the summer months compared to the winter months. In the winter, I turn my water off. In the summer months, I water enough to keep the grass green, but my usage goes up 45%, and that's quite a bit. So we do offer turf replacement rebates and other things to help customers not only get a little bit money back for installing some drought tolerant things, but you know, just overall they're going to use less water, and that's what we're trying to get. So it might not sound like a lot, but we're trying, and I think more people are getting on board as we go along.
To answer this gentleman's question, I believe compared to 1970, our current population is about 6 times. So it is good that we're using less per capita, but it's still absolutely more, I think. I have a question here.
Yeah, you folks are using recharge, and just for Visalia area, it seems to have been, how has that been working out? The use of recharge to replenish the groundwater use.
Sure. So I can identify a couple different things. One method that the city is using is actually, as you might maybe not think about, is the water that we get through our wastewater treatment plant. We produce about 13.5 million gallons per day of wastewater. And as I mentioned previously, that's really only about half the amount we're pumping, and Stuart can fact check me on that. But I think roughly speaking, that's about how much we're producing at the plant, which is about 13.5 million gallons. We have a partnership with TID where we were able to trade that water, and they're able to utilize it through under our state permit to distribute for agricultural use. In turn, they provide us with water that we can utilize for recharge. And they provide that to us on the north end of town. The city has a down gradient from northeast to southwest. That's how all of our water flows, both through our pipes and also underground. But we're able to utilize that water through recharge on the north end, and then as it flows through the city, it ideally starts to replenish our cone of depression underneath the city. I don't know specifically how much we've been able to increase that, but we're continuing to look for opportunities to provide more recharge water, whether it be through flood release. The city actually is an owner of ditch stock water that we utilize on an annual basis to be able to recharge that, and looking for other opportunities to bring water into the city.
Just a follow-up question. On the earlier map, there was a lot of red dots more towards the central western part of the east of the valley, Hanford area, Corcoran. Is there any possibility for any of the recharge basins that are currently in use to ever replenish some of the groundwater levels in that area?
So generally speaking, it's very difficult to do that way out in that direction because most of the subsidence we're seeing is under what they call the Corcoran clay, which is a fan of clay layer that's about 300, 400 feet deep. So what we do is we try and do recharge on the east side of that clay, and once it takes decades and decades to get down there, but it'll make it down there. So most of our workhorse recharge basins are going to be in the Visalia east of 99 corridor up to the foothills. That's where we're focusing a lot of our recharge efforts right now. We are investigating some out in the rural areas down towards the areas that are not around drinking water wells, what we call direct injection, and we will inject water, direct surface water, directly from the surface through old irrigation wells that we can't use anymore down into the lower aquifer. So we're in the process of looking at that. Yeah, Westlands has piloted that, and they're showing great success with it.
Greg Collins, you've been following this kind of thing for what, 60 years? Almost?
A while.
A while, okay. We'll leave it at a while. Tell us your thoughts on how the city of Visalia has improved its efforts to replenish groundwater, recharge our aquifer, and limit subsidence. Because there's a huge difference between what's going on now and what was going on in, when did you get first elected? 1975 or something?
Long time ago.
I'm just needling them now. Now I'm just being mean, aren't I?
Thanks for that question. Just a little bit of background. I had the opportunity to serve on the Mid-Cahuilla GSA with Aaron as our fearless leader. And I can honestly say I think I got a graduate degree in water after serving 5 years on that technical committee. In terms of Visalia, and that's one topic I love talking about, it really started maybe with the expansion of our treatment plant years ago. I think the council at that time concluded that water was going to become more valuable. And this was probably the third plant expansion that I presided over. And at that time, the council very astutely indicated we want a tertiary treatment plant wherein we can irrigate with the water we're treating any type of crops and work out a deal for groundwater recharge. So $145 million later, we had a very sophisticated wastewater treatment plant. TID benefits because we divert the treated water to their farmers, and in turn, we get water upstream from Visalia. And if you drive out 198, you'll see a number of basins there where we capture the water and resync it. That in itself was a significant decision to put Visalia in a position where it wasn't overusing its groundwater system. Paralleling that, I think somebody mentioned this, per capita, people in California are using significantly less water today than they did 10 or 20 years ago. The reason is twofold. There was the Green Building Code, which nobody liked, but it has encouraged significant conservation. And then just the publicity of lack of water has encouraged people to take out their yards and do different things with their yard that uses less water. So from a city perspective, cities have done a marvelous job in terms of managing its water consumption, but there's more work to do. A couple of tidbits in my book, in my partner's book, Jim. We calculated that at least in the San Joaquin Valley, 92 to 95% of the water consumed is by agriculture. When I was on the council, people would come up and say, Greg, why are you allowing all those subdivisions? We don't have enough water. But the elephant in the room is agriculture in terms of water consumption. And that's where most of the efforts need to take place in terms of sustainability. Visalia has also had some opportunity to do some different kinds of design. I wish they did more. Some communities are actually taking the runoff from a commercial or an industrial or a residential development and sinking it into bioswales versus the traditional put it in the curb and gutter. It flows down to the drop inlet. It takes a trip in a pipe and ends up in a stormwater basin. It has a 6-foot chain link fence around it, little vegetation, and in the old days you found washing machines and all sorts of stuff inside. But today there's opportunities to improve the appearance of our basins, but do more micro planning in terms of encouraging recharge on site versus diverting it to the curb and gutters. Is that good enough?
Yeah, are we doing any of that now in the city of Visalia?
We could do a lot more.
Okay. Got a question back there?
Yeah, bear with me because I'm a horrible public speaker. And on your chart there, I'm more in the depression stage than anything else. I'm a lifelong farmer, multi-generational farmer. I don't really have a question, but I'd like to give you guys a little food for thought. In the last century, the population of the world has gone from 2 billion people to 8 billion people. Funny thing about people, they need to eat. Resources. We wouldn't be sitting in this room if the electricity wasn't brought in from where the electricity is made. It's not made in Visalia. We wouldn't be sitting in this room if the timber wasn't brought in to build the buildings where the trees grow. They're not grown in Visalia. We wouldn't be driving on our roads if we didn't have asphalt from a mine that didn't come from Visalia. But yet somehow we are unwilling to move water around a state. It takes a lot of things to grow a crop. It takes a climate, it takes soil, it takes water, it takes labor, it takes money. Most of the world is not blessed with the climate or the soil we have. There's only a small portion of the world that has what we have. We need the water. We have the other components. The state has the water, they just refuse to move it. Other countries that don't have the water have desaled their water. They've done other things to accommodate because food is your basic need. It comes before housing, it comes before electricity. There are solutions. One of them, a long time fact in California is 80% of the population lives within 20 miles of the coast. Desal the coast. Water those 80% of Californians on desal water. Visalia, Tulare, cities, do toilet to tap. Make a closed system. That technology has existed for decades, but it's impalatable to people to want to think that they're drinking water that went down their toilet at some point. But are we so arrogant to think we'd rather not do that and destroy our food source? That makes no sense to me. People can climatize. Crops cannot climatize. We grow the crops here that we do because they fit this climate, this microclimate. It's not, you can't grow these crops in Iowa. You can't grow them where the water is. You can't grow them in the Sierras. We grow them here for a reason. People could live in Iowa. People could live in a lot of places where there is water, but you don't have the perfect climate. You don't have the perfect soil, but your crops cannot. Loss of farmland. the United States loses about 2 million acres of farmland a year. Where's that going to be made up? California loses, I think, about 50,000 acres of farmland a year. Where's our food going to come from? Are we going to cut down the rainforest? Every acre that's lost here requires an acre to go in another location. Are those people as efficient as we are? Is it acre per acre? Does it have to be transported across the world? Basins versus dams. You're taking world-class farm ground and you're putting a basin on it instead of putting a dam up in a mountain that can't be farmed and putting in a pipeline. Your electricity comes in wires from some distant place. Your timber comes on a truck from a distant forest. There is no lack of water. And the last point I have, farmers only use water to grow food. That's what we use water for. When they say, oh, agriculture uses 85% or whatever, it sounds like, I don't know what it sounds like, but it doesn't sound like we're growing food. That's all we do with it is grow food. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any response?
I'll respond to that.
Go ahead.
I think there's some good points there. I want to read a little quote, which is at the beginning of my book, but it was right on 80 years ago as it is today. It never failed that during the dry years, the people forgot about the rich years, and during the wet years, they lost all memory of the dry years. It was always that way. And that attitude is prevalent today as it was 80 years ago. That quote comes from John Steinbeck. When my partner and I decided to write this book on water, we realized after getting my graduate degree from Aaron that there was a much bigger issue, a much bigger story. The gentleman in the back has alluded to some of those. We're trying to feed the world. But it doesn't need to be a zero-sum game. Farmers are intelligent people. They try to utilize the best technology to minimize their consumption of water. And urban interests also try to conserve water where possible. I think what we all need to understand is it's not just about water, it's about aquifers and subsidence and disadvantaged communities that have no water. It's groundwater contamination. It's the history of water diversion, loss of habitat and wildlife, and it's also about our local economy. We are probably the richest agricultural region in the world. Fresno just surpassed Tulare County this year. Last year, Tulare County was #1 in agricultural receipts. But it's important to understand what we grow. My buddy Jim and I were doing some analysis of the #1 crops grown in the San Joaquin Valley. Tulare County, what's the #1?
Dairy.
Milk. What's the #1 in Kings County? Probably milk. Grape, Fresno, or nuts. And Kern County is either grapes or nuts. Here's an interesting tidbit. We're worried about water. We don't have enough. The more we use, the more subsidence we have. People losing their wells, especially disadvantaged communities. So we did analysis of the water consumption of every commodity, not every, most commodities in the South San Joaquin. Almonds is right up there with alfalfa. Guess where our almonds go to?
The Far East.
Yeah, Europe, China, Korea. So essentially, we're taking a nut that consumes a huge amount of water and we're shipping it to another country. And you wonder, does that make sense if we are concerned about water?
Yeah, but you can,
It's very important that we export things.
Understand?
So should we export steel? Should we export timber? I mean, it's a natural resource. People's lives depend upon natural resources. We all use them, we all consume them. Water is a renewable natural resource. A tree is a renewable natural resource. We are a debtor nation. We need something that is a balance of trade. If you exported cars, you'd say, that a boy, go get them. What's the difference?
The point was not to discuss economics, just a factual statement that almonds use a lot of water.
Not that much, not significantly more than a lot of other crops.
Well,
yeah, the gentleman back there is correct. It's, alfalfa's a different story, but almonds, pistachios, grapes, citrus, it's all within, they all take about the same amount of water. But I just take issue with respect to the foundational claim that there's not enough water in California. Incorrect. Not correct. I said during my comments earlier, the condition that we're in California, there's a chart that I showed, is the bar chart. These are choices. These are policy choices that have resulted in declining water availability. The hydrology in California hasn't changed much in 125 years. And this is not Johnny Amral's data. This is the Department of Water Resources data. We see what happens with hydrology in California, and it hasn't changed substantially in 125 years. There's wet years, there's dry years, there's average years. That's why all these projects exist, to deal with that reality. So I just fundamentally disagree with an argument that starts with, we don't have enough water. That's bullshit. That's not true. We have a lack of courage. We have a lack of willingness to acknowledge that these are choices that have been made that have created these shortages. And there's no industry that has innovated more than the agriculture industry, especially in the Central Valley. The level of ingenuity, investment, risk-taking that takes place on a daily basis with blood, sweat, tears, and money to be as efficient as possible to grow a crop that the rest of the world wants and that we want. By the way, if for some reason there was a massive yearning for garbanzo beans worldwide, we would grow those, or a lot more of them. But it's just important. In all the years I worked in D.C., I shouldn't have cussed. I'm sorry. I just realized I said a bad word. But in all the years I worked in D.C., I could never. It always baffled me that the water issue was not a 90-10 issue in the Central Valley. Irrespective of party affiliation, irrespective of philosophy, it should be a 90-10 issue. And that 90% of us who reside here in the Central Valley should be on the same page as it relates to water reliability. We can't get there because there's so much information out there, some good, some not so good, that's skewing this valley's ability to come together and say, you know, perhaps we should be demanding that our elected officials do better and set policy that actually results in water supply making it to California. This, again, I would challenge anybody to challenge my numbers on the hydrology in California, what we've seen in the last, more than the last century. The hydrology has not changed. Choices, movement of water has changed dramatically. I have every chart you can want to see that indicate that, and I can point to exactly what took place and exactly the cost to the water projects that each of these decisions had on the water supply. So I get a little worked up, forgive me. Dave, I know Dave a lot of time, he can get worked up too. That's what I love about him, but it's frustrating. I use the word frustrating a lot because it would be a much easier argument. I could easily get slam dunked on if the assertion that there's just not enough water in California were true. It's not true.
And
I don't think I stated that. All I did was state a fact. What the book I wrote talks about is solutions to the issue, and we have many problems associated with water, but there are solutions out there. And for those folks in DC, they should come to the city of Visalia and get a lesson on how to manage water. Because when we spend $145 million on a tertiary treatment plant and/or purchased 300 acres east of town for recharge purposes, or implemented the green building code, or encouraged people to only water on certain days, or take their lawn out, we are making changes for the better and managing our water in a manner that is sustainable. So I don't need to be lectured by somebody that thinks that we've lost our way here, because I would say Visalia is the model community for
I don't think I ever said that, Greg, that we've lost our way in Visalia. I'm simply trying to make sure that the record is straight about available water in California, and that there is a direct line between water that's available versus what gets exported, put into storage, put into conveyance facilities. There's just 30 years of evidence showing that is a direct line between action that's been taken, or lawsuits that have been filed, or regulations that have been implemented that have resulted in less water export. That's not a matter of debate. It is not a matter of debate.
One of the things, just to get people riled up, is we devoted a whole chapter its title is water wasted when it goes to the ocean? Now, if you drive around the valley, you would think, well, that's an absolute fact. Look at all the billboards.
They cost water, by the way, to make those billboards.
First of all, that's not science. There's a reason water runs to the ocean. But we get in these positions where they become adversarial, and then we never get anything accomplished. If the rhetoric were dialed back and we worked more like the Mid-Kauai GSA and Aaron's folks, and I know Cal Water is very involved in water conservation, we could do wonderful things and serve as models for other regions.
I haven't read your charter, but I would be shocked if the Mid-Kauai GSA or the Kauai Subbasin in general isn't an advocate for regulatory changes that result in better management of water and more exports of water. I would be shocked if that's not in your charter.
Yeah, and I wanted to weigh in here because this is my normal day conversation with a lot of people. It's urban versus ag. It's ag versus the environment. And I think what I hear it all, and I would say that it's all correct. Ag uses a lot of water. Cities depend on ag. The environment was left out of the conversation. And at the end of the day, the situation in Sacramento gets worse. And I'm going to give you a reference point why the decision that we have here in this room is not about like more water supply. It's about what does our future want to look like. And earlier this year, The state set itself up in a situation where Northern California was receiving atmospheric rivers, and south of the San Joaquin River, the Delta, we were pretty dry. The north of Delta was in flood condition to the tune of 200,000 CFS per day. If I can put in perspective, 2023, we think we had about 10 to 11,000 CFS coming down the Kauai River. So if you ever went out and looked at that. So there was 200,000 going out the Delta. And at that time, San Luis Reservoir, which is where that water gets pumped into, had a space of about 300 to 400,000 acre feet of safe space to be water to be put into the reservoir. The state owns a bank of pumps. The federal government owns a bank of pumps. The state shut their pumps down, made a claim that they are maximizing pumping, but the federal government was using their pumps. We missed 300 to 400,000 acre feet in a 2 to 3 week window because of regulatory compliance, which I've asked state officials, if we would have left those pumps on, would you demonstrably seen a collapse of the Delta, or could you even measure an impact in the Delta? No, we couldn't, Aaron. But there was a...
That went on for like a month and a half, 6 months.
There was a date, there was a condition, and we fulfilled that goal and objective. And so I think Johnny's right. I think Mr. Collins is right. We're all right. So the question becomes is, in the future... Yeah, exactly. See, I'm not going to contend with it. I learned not to fight with anybody. But what I'm going to fight for is that gentleman in the back. Because, again, he's here tonight, right? He spends his money in the community. He fights for our community, right? And if we don't start making changes in our water supply management, then that gentleman has to make some pretty hard decisions on what his future looks like for our community. And I see it happening right now. The decision becomes is my company that farms 5,000 acres will just, what would you like? We'll write you a check for that, right? And that's the model that's going to survive in California.
We have a
I don't
question.
mean to be rude to anybody on the dais, anybody on the panel, but it's my job to fight for the people who are out in this audience who want to ask a question. So I'm going to advocate for one of those people right now. Sir?
Okay, so I think most of the people here tonight probably live in the city, and we've heard a lot about what's been done as far as regulating water use in the city. I understand, you know, a lot of the discussion about what's going on for farmers has to do with irrigation water supplies. What I don't hear are things about, let me pause and say, I know that small farmers especially are very worried about how are they going to comply with their water use. But I don't hear anything about how farmers, people out in the county, are being regulated like city water users are. I pass by places where I will see literally a couple, 3, 4 acres of grass that they put water on and they mow and they maintain. And I know 3 or 4 acres of grass in the city is a hell of a lot of grass and a lot of water. So can you address that? What's being done to regulate their use?
I'll be very honest with you. That is a great question, and the state actually exempted rural domestic wells from any regulation. In Sigma, our goal is to regulate anything greater than 2 acre feet per acre that's not a domestic well. But if you're on a rural piece of property like I am, out in the country, on my own well, those are exempt from Sigma and any regulatory burden. We calculated it in the Mid-Kauai GSA. Again, Mr. Collins speaks to agriculture. The needle just wobbles a little bit. So you have to look at where you're going to put your focus and your time and your energy. And so we are focusing on the conditions that we have in the agricultural footprint and in the urban footprint. But technically, by Sigmas, those are exempt. By the way, I took my lawn out. I have a little patch, which barely qualifies as a lawn.
I have a question regarding subsidence, getting back to subsidence. I've heard panelists express concern about the effects of subsidence on the surface water infrastructure. But what I'm hoping our audience does not go home without is I would like to hear an explanation about what overdrafting, overpumping does permanently to the capacity of our groundwater aquifers. We lose, my understanding is that when, as Mr. Fukuda mentioned, when air replaces water underground, it compresses, and we can't get that back.
No, what happens is, interestingly, I wish I brought an image. Clay soil structure is these little plates, right? And in between those plates is water, and the water is propping those plates up. When you pull the water out, those plates collapse and they fall on each other. And so you're not able to reinflate them and grow them bigger. And so it's a one-time extraction of that water, and you don't get it back. So it's irreversible to a certain extent. There's a very small amount. Once you rehydrate it, it'll pump up a little bit. Largely, we've looked at that volume of water in the clay structures. It's actually not a large volume of water, but the problem is once you sink the ground, it's permanent. There are folks that have made claims that in all reality, many of our upper clays, that they've already been collapsed all the way. So there were clays up at the top that we were shrinking, it's just they're done. And that's why in the Frying Current Canal, there's been programmed subsidence in there, so that as we see that, think about it, once you take the water out, it just doesn't collapse immediately, it takes time, right? And that residual subsidence, and if you stop, say you just stopped all pumping in the Central Valley, you'd see it slowly decline and then maybe level off in 20 years. We've done studies with Stanford University that the subsidence that we see on our western edge, some of it we're seeing today is from pumping that occurred in the 1980s. So that's that residual signal that you're going to see out in the future.
And that would be a significant difference in the hydraulics, right? That's a significant difference.
From a groundwater supply perspective, the volumes are not make it or break it. They're not big enough volumes that we're saying you don't touch it, because, I mean, again, then it's a non-usable supply anyway because you're not going to touch it. So there's plenty of other granular aquifers with the stands that we're going to rely on, but we have to get out of the lower aquifer or prop the lower aquifer up again in order to use it. And so strategies are being put in place right now. Not a lot of time on our side.
Aaron, if we can't put water back into lands that we have overdrafted, what is the point of recharge? Why are we doing that if the water's not going to go back in there?
Because we're gonna come back up to the upper aquifer and have to use that water in the upper aquifer. So it's from the surface down to the Corcoran clays that we're going to have to start reusing. And largely we've been below the clay, so now we've been recharging above the clay, so we're actually finding water levels in the upper clay is usable, but not to support everything that we've got going on. So that's why you got to reduce the lower, come to the upper, and cut back. And so that's why this region's on allocations right now.
There's also
on allocations?
Yeah, we allocate groundwater to landowners with caps and limits on it. So there's...
Okay. We didn't really talk much about that.
No, we did not.
We also didn't talk about fallowing land. We didn't talk about a lot of things, actually, this evening. But unfortunately, we've run out of time to talk about anything else this evening. I think we want to come back to this topic again and soon. It's not going away. And in fact, what's happening now, there are developments that are going to change the whole picture, maybe in a matter of months. So we will return to this subject. But until that time, I want to thank Aaron Fukuda, Johnny Amaral, Greg Collins, Nick Barch, and of course my old pal, Stu Skolgren. Please give them a round of applause. We will be back on the second Tuesday of next month. That's December. We hope you will be too, because you know what that means? Terry Oman will be here. We're going to be talking about the new, proposed Visalia History Museum with Walter Deisler. But Terry will be here. That is December 9th. We hope you'll be here too. Thank you all very much, and I really appreciate your coming. Thank you.